Let's delve into the original free kick in all things professional soccer. I've watched, well, as I said, I was able to go to the practices for Atlanta United this past week and check out everything that's going on. The team is really looking to try and find itself. Obviously, a few weeks ago, they dismissed Gabriel Heinze as the manager of the team and replaced him with the promotion of assistant coach Rob Valentino to the main position as manager. So they're trying to figure stuff out, bring in a new permanent guy. But while that's going on, they have to keep playing games or playing matches. And you add on top of that the international responsibilities of some of the players, such as Ezekiel Barco, who has been playing with the Argentinian national team in the Olympics. They're eliminated now, but he's been gone for a few weeks, as well as the Gold Cup members of the United States and Brad Guzan, George Bella, and Miles Robinson. They've been involved in that tournament. So you have a new manager, four crucial players and starters on your team out for international duty. Then Joseph Martinez trying to work his way back into the lineup. So there's been a lot of moving parts for Atlanta. And you add on to that as having to play matches. They lost their most recent match at home to the Columbus Crew 1-0. So now they're on a streak now of not winning contests. So it's a lot going on with Atlanta United as prepared to face Orlando City tonight. The good news for Atlanta is that this is the first full week of practice before a match that they've had under interim manager Rob Valentino. So they've been able to be on the practice pitch and implement some of the systems and try to get better at a lot of different things. And that's just so far under Valentino, they've tied at Cincinnati and lost that Columbus contest 1-0, as I mentioned last week. Here is Rob Valentino on this past week of training full time with the crew.
Um, yeah, not to share too much, really, but the biggest things that we've talked about before, you guys have heard the same thing, is taking risks, playing forward, positive reactions, and just a togetherness, and without being tactical, but the togetherness of how we train, how we play together when we're on the ball, off the field, all those things, but then just reactions of adversity of when you're at a moment on the field or if it's something off the field, how are we reacting to things, is everything in a positive manner, and how are we building each other up to get better every single day.
Yeah, and with Valentino, he has been with an assistant not only under Heinz, but he was with the team last year with Frank de Boer and Stephen Glass when those two gentlemen were managers of the team. So he has experience training with these guys, but this was his first tenure as the head man. So here is Alec Kann, goalkeeper for LA United, on training under Valentino.
It's more of a traditional preparation. It's what I'm used to from my time in the league, playing for whether it's an American or a British coach. It's a little bit more familiar for me, and I think the American guys, which not to say one is better than the other, but it's more in our comfort zone. In terms of the preparation for the games, for sure, I even see some things from the previous coaching staff. We were well drilled under him, and it would be silly to just chuck that out the window now that he's no longer with us. So we've kept some of those concepts and some of those habits that we developed over 6 months with the previous manager.
Yeah, and if you look at the standings, Atlanta currently sits 10th in the Eastern Conference outside of the playoff picture. So, and obviously for Atlanta United, their standards, they've won the MLS Cup, they've won a U.S. Open Cup, the Campeones Cup. They've been a championship program ever since they are reaching towards those goals. Ever since they've started the team a few years ago. So sitting 10th place in the conference standings is not exactly where they would want to be. But here is Alec Kann on the team's morale during this tough stretch.
Obviously, we're in a results-based business, but the performances in the last two games have been, for me, overwhelmingly positive, and that's what we have to take from it, and turn those chances into goals, and hopefully that'll turn 0 points or 1 point into 3.
What about the morale of the team? How is it compared to earlier this season?
It's good. It's never really wavered. We have a strong group in there. It's been nice to have a full week with Rob. Last week we only had 2 days, and it was in between midweek and a weekend game. So it's been good to have a little bit more of a regular preparation week for a tough opponent.
Yeah, and we also asked Valentino about him trying to keep the team in a positive mindset as they're working through all of the things that I just went over as far as player availability and coaching change.
Just leading by example at times, like us as a staff and everybody inside the building, if we can be positive and without blowing smoke, right? Like we know where the moments that we're in, and it's not going to say, oh yeah, let's get around the campfire and be happy. It's not that, but it's also like, look, we got to face the next day, and you just kind of take it day by day and step by step. And if you take it with a positive mindset, I think that it's infectious, and it can be infectious the other way around. So I want to make sure that we are that way, and we're here to serve them and to be better for them. So that's the it's not easy, but that's the mindset that I think we evolved.
Yeah, and one thing Atlanta United has taken a lot of pride of publicly and privately, not only saying it to us in the media, but to the fans directly, is about being aggressive, scoring lots of goals, having a free flowing style of play, being very uh, just having a lot of excitement with their style of play. Obviously, Tata Martino, the first manager, was able to blend that quite well. They scored a lot of goals, were underrated defensively, and won championships in that way. And then you had Frank de Boer, who's a little more pragmatic. Now, he did win a U.S. Open Cup and a Campeones Cup under Frank de Boer, but it was a lot more deliberate, a little less excitement, but they produced results. When you had Gabriel Heinze there here most recently, they weren't scoring goals, not very exciting, and not producing results. That's a bad combination for Atlanta within the front office and obviously with the supporters and what they've been promised. They've only scored 14 goals in 14 MLS matches this year. And furthermore, as I mentioned, defensively, they were underrated. I think under Heinze, they are -4 in goal differential. They've given up 18 goals so far this year in MLS play. But here is Valentino on that aggression and trying to refine that for the team.
I think so. That's a pretty good question because you're right. It could be in different parts of the field, different in opponent base, things like that. I think the taking them out of their comfort zone, an individual. So whether it's a center back, whether it's a left back, whether it's a midfielder, being a little bit uncomfortable with like, if I'm a center back, I'm playing this pass and I'm getting a little bit tense as it goes through those lines. That's a little bit of a risk that, oh yeah, it might not come off the first time, but keep at it second, third time, you might get it, or it's a ball in behind. I think those are what gets people into it. Those are what gets your teammates into it. They see things like that, a ball between lines, a ball over the top, or even if it's a run that you think I might not get this, but the chance I do get it, we might the chance of scoring is higher, right? So not an exact definition, but it's I think it's individual based, it's opponent based, it's a unique thing. I think.
Is that how you see it?
I don't know if I've always seen it that way. I definitely, since being here, you're learning a bit about yourself as a coach and getting to learn from some great coaches and to see some great players up close. You see what it looks like, and especially when you hear the crowd and they get behind those moments, you're like, all right, well, yeah, that's exciting. I understand why they're excited, and you want to give people more of that feeling, and you like the feeling yourself. So I think it's been an adaptation of my philosophy or the way I see things, the way I like to see things. Look, it's risky because it might cost you, but if you can take more risk going the attacking way, I think that it can be exciting. It can be ultimately something that goes and gets you results.
And they face Orlando tonight, and Atlanta City currently sits third in the Eastern Conference. Now, Atlanta does have a winning record against Orlando. They won 6 matches, lost 2, and drawn 5 in this series, and they're 4-1-2 on the road. So they've had success against Orlando. But you got to remember, Atlanta, I believe, when they first started, were undefeated against Orlando through I think the first 10 matches of their series, but I think they've lost the last 2. So it's not been a really good run for Atlanta against Orlando City. Here's Alec Kann on facing Orlando.
I haven't thought about that once. I feel like that's an aberration. Their body of work over the last 2 years is solid, especially at home. So we're expecting a really tough test on Friday. No matter who they put into the game, the roles are somewhat similar. Obviously he's a player with a big pedigree at the international club level, so he'll be dangerous as well. They've also got plenty of guys that can fill those roles and cause us problems.
Yeah, here we'll wrap up our thoughts with the Orlando with manager Rob Valentino on facing this Orlando squad.
I mean, it works both ways. They come off it with an eagerness to get after it. They come off a little bit wounded. Who knows where they're at? But again, I'm trying to put less focus on them in a sense of where they're at and more where are we at, how are we making progress from each game. Obviously, they have players that have been in and out with injuries or suspension last week with one of them. So trying to guess their lineups and things like that you're going to put all that effort into that. But also, they have a way of playing, and no matter if it's this guy or that guy, they play. They have an identity, and that's kudos to their coach because they do a really good job of how they play. So we're taking the challenge of, okay, if this guy plays, he's got these individual qualities, of course, but also as a team, tactically, how are they going to move, how are they going to interact with each other, where can we control space, where can we hurt them, things like that.
Yeah, and those teams, Orlando is dealing with injuries and availability of players as well with international duty, but they have found a way to be on a very solid run. But I think this is the last game or last match we'll see Atlanta, with this current roster. You assume Barco will be back, and all the Gold Cup players will be back with the squad for their next match after this one tonight. So I think for a lot of guys such as Alec Kann and getting an opportunity to play in this match is very important, not only for the team, but also for those individuals. If you listen to and Alec Hann has been talking about this, and he's brought it up. He doesn't get to play that often for Atlanta United, at least with the senior team or the first team in this scenario, because Brad Guzan has been the stalwart starter at the goalkeeper spot, and only one goalkeeper gets to play. And so this is a big moment for him to get some playing time and to find his moment, and find his way into the lineup. We talked the homegrowns, and that's been a big theme over the past few weeks with guys like Masop Scholl and Jackson Conway, Tyler Wolf. Those guys getting moments to play with the first team. Even George Campbell, he's been a defender playing for United too quite a bit over the past few years and on the bench for the first team. But we've seen him playing for the first team during this stretch the past few weeks. So for those guys, this is a major moment for them in their overall development. So we'll recap of that matchup in our next show, which should be around next Monday, which if you're looking at the calendar will be August 2nd. So make sure you keep us in your mind and track when we do that show. Yeah, the Gold Cup final is going to be Mexico and the United States. We've seen both those teams score late goals last night in their semifinals matchup to advance. United States looked sluggish in the first 45 minutes against a very competitive Qatar team that is the Asian champions hosting the World Cup next year. They're not. You would think for a team that doesn't have the biggest history on the international stage, they're not very known over the past few decades. That's a pretty solid squad. Now their goalkeeping and defense leaves a little bit lacking, but they're very aggressive. They like to push forward, and big saves by the United States goalkeeper in the first half to keep them in the contest. And then Zardes was able to get a goal very late in the second half, coming on as a reserve to get the victory. Mexico needed a goal in extra time over Canada to advance to the final. I think you look at the Mexican squad, it's pretty much an A team or maybe their top team. United States, you see some missing bodies there. Specifically, Pulisic is not playing. McKenzie, some guys that have made their names and played really well on an international level are not playing in this Gold Cup. It's a lot of MLS players, a very young squad. I think it's probably one. I think last night was the second or third youngest squad in Gold Cup competition for the United States. So they're playing a lot of young guys, and they're getting some very good experience in this tournament. So you have to figure Mexico is the favorite heading into the final. But anytime you get Mexico and the United States together, and it's only one match, anything can happen. But we'll see what happens in that contest.